everyone. I'm Joy, Marketing Manager for the CBD Show, and this week I am catching up with Liam, our good friend and media partner for Leafie. Liam, thanks for joining us today. Can you introduce Leafie to our viewers?
Of course. So Leafie is a consumer-facing magazine. We launched in 2019, initially focusing on CBD. We kind of expanded a little bit now into kind of cannabis and psychedelics, but Leafie was kind of born, kind of out of a personal journey. So the long story short was I got my dad onto CBD for health reasons. But at the time, back in kind of 2018, the amount of information out in the world about CBD and its potential benefits and kind of plus points was either buried in medical journals or was kind of on kind of blogs, more kind of around cannabis advocacy and kind of associated with that. So the initial motivation we had was that we wanted to take kind of hard to find information or complicated information and make it more accessible to the general public and the people that might need it. And from that kind of initial motivation, obviously, as I say, we've kind of expanded to cover the world of cannabis and psychedelics, and now specifically how our relationship as humanity, how it's changing with these substances. So because we're consumer focused and we're regulated as a kind of independent press kind of member of a press regulator, we don't cover business news. We're kind of purely consumer focused, but we're not writing for the dedicated kind of cannabis consumers or psychedelic kind of psychonauts. So we've had to kind of carve out our own audience and niche within this world, which has been a challenge, but that's what makes us unique and at the moment is what seems to be driving our success.
Absolutely, and it has gone from strength to strength, hasn't it? Really, it's been a non-stop train. You're a juggernaut of an endeavour, which is amazing. I think you're really right in terms of the need for CBD to be brought into a more consumer focus and consumer market. Tell us a bit more about Leafie's audience, if you would.
Yeah, so at the same time as we started Leafie, there were quite a few more kind of CBD orientated kind of magazine websites popped up. We were at the start of a bit of a boom. And people were covering everything around kind of CBD, but a lot of the content at the time was business orientated, and a lot of the readership was business orientated as well, because I think people were looking at the market and the potential. And so a lot of the content consumption was around business to business content, new brands, new developments, new R&D and innovation, which was great. But we chose not to kind of pursue that news. It probably would have been easier and was probably at the time the lower hanging fruit. But we wanted to focus on the end user because we wanted to kind of promote the benefits and we wanted to talk about kind of the positives without having kind of influence or bias from kind of commercial interests. And so we kind of carved out our little niche within the world of CBD, but kind of as I mentioned, we started exploring topics around cannabis, like I say, not cannabis culture, because those people are already catered for. But we started thinking about, people want to know about CBD, and then they get educated about that. And then they become more interested in the plant as a whole. And again, like I say, kind of removed from that culture, CBD in the UK, the majority of brands now, they don't have a hemp leaf on them. They're not green. They're not kind of, that branding is, kind of more wellness or sports or, that kind of focus. So we wanted to move away from that kind of talking about the nuances of kind of cannabis strains or growing or getting into arguments about indica and sativa and whether they even exist. We wanted to focus on topics which might interest and impact people as an adult interested in, but not necessarily associated with CBD, hemp and cannabis. And so what happened was, obviously we were talking about CBD, and with the kind of COVID kind of lockdown, everyone was at home and looking for things to do, and part of that was reading content online. So we thought, well, if we're going to take a punt on kind of talking about cannabis with this kind of same viewpoint that we do with CBD, now's the time to try it. And in all honesty, that was when we probably first got our real big traction with an article that that's kind of self-propelling. We were looking at kind of the kind of gap in the finances in the country because of all the kind of spending that was going on to support the economy and furloughed workers, and whether maybe legalizing cannabis for adult use could plug that gap. And then we did the kind of same thing with psychedelics. Again, it's kind of what's interesting about them. like the medical benefits, etc., like that, without kind of getting into the woo and the fringes of psychedelic culture. What are the developments that might impact someone's everyday life, and kind of help them, feel like a better person, basically. So yeah, over the kind of past year, we've realized this audience that we had in our mind, but it wasn't really defined at the start of our journey, or even at the start of CBD's journey and growth in the UK. And it didn't really exist out of kind of a vague idea in our heads. So it's quite a broad audience. It's people who may have been exposed to cannabis when they were in college or uni, but then drifted away from it, or maybe people that weren't, but then started taking CBD for health reasons, or stress or whatever, and now changing their perceptions of the plant and in general, and thinking, well, CBD is good and it's been great for me. So maybe this kind of association with cannabis being like stoners in bedrooms playing PlayStation and ordering pizzas, that's probably not actually, what cannabis is and who it's for. And, they're people with busy, stressful lives who might want an alternative to, kind of sinking a bottle of wine at the end of a stressful day, people who want help with their sleep, people, like I say, sports recovery is one that people we always speak to and say that's how they've been exposed to it. And then again, kind of in terms of cannabis and psychedelics, people are looking for alternatives to SSRIs, and kind of people wanting to try and find a way to deal with kind of anxiety and all the modern problems that we all kind of face, doing our commutes and meeting our deadlines and that kind of thing. And it's turned out that this idea for this audience that we had, that actually in the UK, these people exist. Not only do they exist enough to read our content, but they exist in their thousands. There are a lot of people who want to have kind of a mature, reasonable discussion about, especially plant-based medicines and substances. They probably don't buy into the kind of hysteria that we were all fed as kind of kids, that all drugs are bad and evil and whatever the Daily Mail says goes. And it's kind of, people want to look at this without kind of becoming activists. They're not going to be hanging ganja leaf flags out the window, but they probably are quite happy in a legal market to take a 10 milligram cannabis gummy and have the giggles with the mates instead of sinking a bottle of gin, or they're happy to microdose kind of psilocybin because they want to improve their creative process or their focus on it, like a project. So it turns out there's thousands of these people who are looking at these substances in a different way, in a more mature and rational way. And they want to know and learn more without necessarily kind of identifying or buying into a specific subculture. And so that's who we cater for. Our strapline is for the curious, and that's kind of who our audience is. And as a result, we've kind of really grown. As you say, it's really accelerating now. We're reaching about 50,000 people a month, and it seems to be growing on a week by week basis, which is super exciting, really.
It is really exciting. I remember, our last conversation, it really struck me and inspired me, the fact that you'd managed to grab a load of people who I think probably had quite an isolated experience or felt quite isolated within their curiosity, and to remove that stigma and to bring people together to be able to learn more and to be able to, as you say, have like the kind of adult conversation around plant-based products and supplements, basically, for life.
Yeah.
It must be quite interesting though, because you've picked quite an individual route. I mean, what would you say are the biggest challenges that you're facing as a publisher within this space?
So, I mean, we face the same challenges that everyone in the CBD industry faces. We've had to grow organically. We can't advertise Leafie through social, so we can't promote our posts, we can't boost, we can't build our audience through paid spend. But in a way, that's kind of been a blessing. The slower process has meant we've had time to listen, to learn, to kind of really understand what resonates and look at the data and get the feedback from our readers and start to work out, like I say, trying to establish whether this audience actually exists, and then finding them and building them. So that, challenges it, but again, everyone faces that in this industry. Within kind of when we've reported more on kind of cannabis related issues, the community in there can be quite fractious. As a publication, we take responsibility for the fact that we are kind of moving into a community and an industry that has a lot of challenges, and a lot of people have been fighting for a long time and working really hard to try and change public perception or change policy. So we do try and focus and put a spotlight on some of the grassroots campaigners and activists, but within kind of that community, there's kind of a bit of infighting and bickering quite often. People are arguing essentially about certain, kind of things that they think are probably the right way to go, when really they're all kind of fighting for a common goal. And it would be really nice to see a bit more unity within that community. It can be a bit disheartening when we get accused of being kind of like a corporate mouthpiece or something like that, but you have to just shrug it off. I mean, it's sometimes quite amusing. I got accused not long ago of kind of making millions out of the cannabis community, which was, it was nice to think that someone thought that we were, driving around in Bentleys as a result of Leafie. Maybe in the future, but probably more likely Tesla's, obviously being kind of eco-focused. But yeah, there's challenges, but at the end of the day, they're for the most part, they have their own blessings within. So nothing too serious.
And millionaires by next year, Rodney, apparently. Brilliant. No, fair enough. So you are obviously going from strength to strength, and it is really exciting, and you have carved out a real niche within the community. Tell us a bit more about your plans for the future. What's coming up for Leafie?
Yeah, so we're growing our writing team at the moment, which is great. We're working with some excellent regular contributors, such as Ruby Devoy, who you probably know. She's very prominent within kind of CBD and cannabis, and she's fighting the good fight, and she's also an excellent writer. So we're going to continue with working people like her. We've got Simper Carter's going to be doing a few contributions for us, and again, he's kind of really embedded in the kind of activism side. And then we're going to bring in a few staff writers, hopefully younger people who want to kind of get into this industry. We're kind of really focused on kind of supporting younger people, and kind of a bit of a socialist. I'm trying to make sure that we're a balanced team, giving kind of female voices the chance to join us and write. I mean, the cannabis world is I think is probably, it's kind of it's great because it's there's a lot more female representation in the industry, yeah. But that's something that I'm kind of quite passionate about, making sure that we have a balanced team. It's it's not just kind of a load of middle-aged white bros. And then beyond that, obviously we want to take what we're doing online and kind of match it to what's going on in the real world. Everyone's kind of been stuck on Zoom and wants to get away from it, and we want to do that. So we'll be running some kind of events with our community, but also having much more of a physical presence at events and expos, such as the CBD Show in London in April, is it? Yeah. So we want to be there, we want to be meeting guests, we want to be kind of talking to them, finding out what they think, speaking to businesses, finding out what what's up with them, what's new. Really just getting involved in events like the ones you guys are doing, and kind of we spent kind of 2 years stuck behind the desk and talking to people over Zoom or email, and it'd be really nice to kind of meet not just kind of the business side, but the kind of readers and the community out there that's grown around this kind of lockdown. A lot of people probably turned to CBD because of COVID, and now they're out there in the real world, kind of talking about its benefits. And yeah, we just want to get back out there and meet everyone face to face. So yeah, looking forward to it.
I think I promised you a cup of coffee about 2.5 years ago. I think I still owe you that since the pandemic. So
yeah, I think there's quite a few drinks out there.
That's amazing, and I know we're really excited to have you at the event, because you are really good at having those conversations and opening up those conversations. I think particularly day 2 will be good when it's our consumer day, and you can, and that's your audience, isn't it? So I'm really excited to have you amongst the people.
Yeah, we'll be out there milling about and saying hello to everyone. So
yeah,
look out for us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, before you go, secret question. Tell us, if you could, if we were to walk into your bathroom cabinet right now, what CBD products are you using at the moment?
Okay, so obviously we get sent quite a lot of stuff. So we've got some samples for a brand called Power Flower, who are moving to kind of cold pressed hemp. So it's solventless. There is some, I'm trying to think, we've got some 4-5 CBD, which we're going to be doing some writing about those guys, which the brand that I followed kind of from the start. And I think brands like 4-5 have been excellent in terms of, kind of changing the perception of CBD from kind of, brands that are aimed at the cannabis, maybe consumer, kind of taking a product and making it kind of accessible to sports people, professional sports people, and obviously those guys are moving into kind of wellness at the moment. God, I mean, it's full. I'll be honest with you. And I couldn't tell you off the top of the head. So what else did we had something really interesting recently, but it escapes me. but yeah, I mean, what I'm always looking for, so, if, kind of plug in Leafie a little bit here, but we're always looking for innovation and development within CBD. So, we've seen a few brands recently that are kind of pushing the envelope. So one that was a kind of a pre-workout rather than a post-workout, which I thought was really great, combining with nootropics. A brand called Level Out. Check them out. Bit of a plug for you guys there. I hope you're watching back. And another one that intrigued me. So it's basically a CBD-based lubricant, sexual lubricant. Again, I think this innovation of, we can take these products and not just necessarily go, right, put some drops under your tongue, but what else can we do with it? So yeah, so this is my CBD collection is extensive and interesting, and it really just
you're so right.
Pre-workout to lube, so
yeah. But all fit well. It's so true. I don't think we've seen innovation in a market like this for such a long time, and that is what makes it such an exciting industry to be working in, for sure. For all the viewers, I will try and get Liam's list of top products, and I'll put those in the notes before. I'll also put the link to Leafie so that you can check it out, subscribe in the box before. And of course, I'll also be putting the link to the CBD show so you can register for your tickets there. As I say, Leafie is an official media partner for the CBD show, and we are absolutely stoked that you are. It's fantastic. The show is on April the 22nd and 23rd, 2022. Come and meet Liam, come and see some innovation, come and meet us. And Liam, thank you so much for your time today. It was really lovely talking to you. Brilliant.
Yeah, you too.
Take care. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye-bye.